Maynard James Keenan, front person from TooL, A Perfect Circle, as well as Puss Fern has a new book now about his life. Hey, man, how are you? Welcome to the show, and tell me about just the process of writing a book.
Yeah, it's not easy. You don't know really where to start. And the book only really touches on some things. It doesn't touch on everything. It just kind of gives you a small map. We chose to focus on, pieces of crossroads, pieces of decisions. And I think Sarah was accurate in helping put you in the shoes of that person walking until you're actually in it. It's different, of course. 20/20 hindsight, the decisions seemed obvious, but not when you're standing there.
It's amazing have you taken time to kind of think, reflect on the totality of those decisions? Are you the kind of guy that does that?
Only in reference to this publication. I think it's a loose map. Kind of figure out where you were, where you are, maybe where you're going. It's difficult to... You don't want to just trust every intuitive decision you have. Although that's what the book is saying, that I trusted my intuition and got here, but I think, things just change, so you have to always kind of be conscious and aware and breathing and in your own body to make those decisions, regardless of what decisions came before. It's never going to be the same.
It's like trust in your own gut or your own intellect is one of those things where you just have to do the work, and then when opportunity knocks, maybe you get lucky because of all the repetition of trusting yourself. Do you think that works for you? It
can. It has. It also hasn't. There's things that didn't fly. But you learn from those things, and you hopefully go forward, whatever they are.
In the years that I've interviewed you, you've done a really good job of knowing what you want to share and how you want to share it. On an emotional level, settling in to do this, did you struggle with the idea of, well, if it's going to be a real book, I have to say things that maybe I hadn't wanted to say in the past?
I think the reason I approached it the way we did, Sarah and I, is because of, it's kind of a milestone. 50 years there's a lot that's gone on. And I think that there's a disconnect in Western culture in terms of celebrity. I think just all of a sudden you wake up one day and you got there. They dismiss everything that came before and everything that you do with that opportunity of success. They say there's no way you could have done that thing you're doing now without the thing that we know you about.
We wouldn't buy wine if it wasn't for Perfect Circle or TooL.
Right.
That kind of thing, right?
Which is ridiculous. All the things that came before that you don't know about. Nobody, I'm sure that you have female Olympians here, wrestlers, all the struggles that took for them to get to the Olympics. They didn't just try out one day. Mm-hmm. All the adversity of females trying to just be in wrestling in general, coming up in high school, all the pushback of that, all the stigmatism, all the negative shit they had to go through, I'm sure. And yet they persevered and got on the Olympic team and went and competed. They didn't show up that day.
Right.
A lot of work went into it. And that's not dismissing, of course, the male Olympians, but as far as, the female struggle just to get to that event in that sport had to be a tremendous amount of work, hurdles, resistance.
And fame alone isn't going to make you successful at the other things that you do.
Right. So, yes, I guess that's kind of what the chronicle is. It's not really even for me. It was more for my children, so they could see, in case I don't get to tell that story. It's more for them. So, I guess you end up opening yourself to other people reading that, of course, and dissecting in strange ways those stories. But it's worth it as long as my kids have a frame of reference.
And so when it was being written, that was in your head, telling the story to another generation?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a map of sorts.
Did you learn anything about yourself?
I'm sure. It's a fresh book, so it's hard to identify those points of reference. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of patterns when you start looking at the broad strokes, metaphorical references.
I think it's interesting. I mean, I would from the outside. So much about childhood can be attributed to stability or the lack thereof, and even though you may have had versions of it or not, or versions of instability, even a little thing like the school or the where you lived, the districts being redrawn, and not knowing which school you went to, and this constant cycle of, oh, it's new again, it's new again, it's new again. I mean, on a deep cellular level, that has to be a big reason why you have done the things you have done.
Yeah, I think again, that's pretty much the input of your childhood is going to dictate where you go. I feel like, and I'm not a psychologist, but I would say that, those early years, your preschool and elementary years are kind of where those formative years are, where the damage or structure is established. And then you, in your junior high or high school years, you start to navigate those hurdles, those limitations, those hang-ups, those strengths, those triumphs. You start to become who you are in that high school setting. And I think by the time you graduate, in theory, you should be in a place where you started to crack the ice on where you're going to go, what you're going to do. I don't think any of that really comes anywhere near your conscious mind or forefront until maybe you're 27, 28.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Just you're pretty convinced you know everything at 18, and then you're pretty convinced you didn't know anything at 18, at 19, and so on and so forth till after 25. Every year is a new, oh no, now I know everything. And then
your generation and my generation would be the beginning of the system doesn't work. The idea of get a job, stay on it. This is the generations of the layoffs of our dads or moms. This is the generation of, maybe people have been thrown overboard. Do you think that had an impact on you in terms of what you pursued?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I had the benefit of growing up in Michigan. We're snow shovelers, as our big brothers to the north, big sisters to the north are. There's a point A and a point B, and you can't get to point B without something in your way. And you had to, in many cases, physically remove it. So I think that work ethic kind of helped. And that disillusionment we might have started to see, where Social Security wasn't what it was cracked up to be. Retirement wasn't what it was cracked up to be. Food, like now your food kills you. What the?
And the government sides with the manufacturers rather than the consumers.
Yeah. So I think, there's definitely. I think we have it a little better off because we understand, as Northerners, Northerners, how to survive those harsher weathers. We understand how to overcome the barriers. So I think we have a little bit of a leg up because we understand how to grow food, how to survive in these circumstances, hunt, gather, grow, cultivate. So I don't think we're quite as disillusioned as people who might, that polarity, and maybe in the southern states or Midwest, where when the bottom drops out, you're like, what the?
I know everybody experiences music in their own way, but what I loved about A Perfect Circle, especially when it first came out, and even the TooL stuff, was I always felt like it was winter to me, and that I always felt, as free as this music is, I feel really constricted when I hear it. There's a real, and it wasn't tension. I always think tension's the wrong word for that sound, but it felt tight. like this is going to be almost too much to carry? When you're up there and performing, and when you're writing, and when you're doing all your business things, are you doing it the same way? Like, can you make music and run a winery and write books and act? Can you do it all from the same place?
No, I think I think my creative process, of course, is going to be unconsciously similar, just because it is coming from me. But I think a lot of those things are, especially with the winery, especially with all the other businesses with Pussifer, there's definitely a freedom and a breadth that's attached to those projects that's meant to be not quite as constrictive, not quite as it's structured, but not in an inflexible way.
I think I read that you're looking at the fans of Pussifer almost like you're trying to not teach them, maybe that's the word you think of, or cultivate them, to get them to a position to accept what it is you guys think is the artistic expression. Meaning, I don't want to do a traditional record tour thing. Like, you're trying to develop your audience. Is that accurate?
I just think we're presenting options. I think we're just, as an artist, if the audience follows, that's great. But at the end of the day, that might be a collateral benefit. But it really is just our attempt to look at things from different perspectives, approach things in different directions, and just create from what we know, put ourselves in situations where we have to reinvent ourselves a little bit or think outside the box to complete a puzzle. I think that helps for us as artists to expand our horizons. But as far as, I think most selfish artists, and I mean that in a good way, their goal is to get into a puzzle and think through that process themselves, or with their tight group of people, close group, to solve those puzzles, whether it's with technique, with digitally, emotionally, just trying to figure out those puzzles. And I think then people will, if it resonates with you, then great. Hopefully it inspires you to do something, or see a different solution, us having shed a light in a particular way. And again, be it what it may, cuisine, wine, music, art, performance, video, animation, all those things. I think that's kind of the goal of the artist, to let the audience dictate how you move, what you do, how you say it, when you do it. Now you're just a commercial. Now you're just you're Walmart in a way, and I can't really. That doesn't help anybody.
And you're in such an interesting way because of the relationship the audience has with TooL. There's so much fervor that. Good
word.
And so I imagine for a guy like you, it must be really interesting to try to navigate that.
Or don't.
Yeah, I suppose that's actually more accurate to the way you've approached it. Or don't.
Or don't.
Was it easy to do that? The
no,
don't part?
I mean, no. When no. No. I think a friend of mine described it really well. She'd gone to a show, and she's very tapped in. Does a lot of breath of fire, Kundalini yoga, up at 4 a.m. with the sun. Very tapped in, but is doing her own work, moving things in her body that most people are incapable of moving on their own. They need a little help. And that was her observation at one of the shows, was that there's so much energy, and there's so much volume, and so much aggression, and so much happening, that what's happening is there's people there that they can't move a thing in them, and they're relying on this bombastic assault to move those things in them that they can't. But where that leaves me is that now I'm stuck having to move that thing in you. Didn't teach you to fish.
Right.
And as an artist, that's crippling. That's a very daunting thing. I feel like I failed if I can't get you to move that piece on your own, and you're hanging your next moments on some poems and some bulldozers. So yeah, it's not a good feeling to feel like you haven't done your job.
When did you start to feel like that?
Late 1900s.
Right then.
Yeah, 95, 98.
That's early.
Yeah, you could start to feel it. We painted ourselves into a corner as far as that bulldozer.
I've seen you in the Pussifer context, in the Perfect Circle context, and in the TooL context. And is it a puzzle? Like you described the puzzle earlier for the artist. Is each successive project part of also a larger puzzle for you?
Oh, I think only in that, you're an artist who's aging, and you're just in a different place. So yeah, those puzzles are going to be different. Absolutely, going to be different. Yeah, absolutely. Leonard Cohen's early work is not the same as Leonard Cohen's later work, and it shouldn't be.
Right.
It just shouldn't be.
I was talking to an artist, a visual artist named Rand Ortner, paints oceans, and he was talking, he's 50-something now, and he was talking about studying the greats in art, but their work in the end, old lions. They talked about and how our culture, certainly because North America's got, and even Europe's got this weird sort of celebrity culture anyway, where it is who's 18 or 25 now, but old lions and the work they've done. Do you spend time wondering about or developing that part of your brain, like okay, so I'm at this stage of my life now, here's the shit that I want to make?
I think it just comes naturally because I'm just making. So I'm not thinking about it being my old lion stage. I just am, and I do.
Yeah, and to be clear, you're not an old lion yet. You're still a young guy.
Well, I'm not, 52 is not spring chicken. So, but I think, all those things, the creative expression of wine, I think there's nothing that speaks of a place more loudly and clearly than a well-made regional wine. So with that comes an entire community, an entire economy, an entire social network of people working together, farming. It breaks down so many political, financial, religious barriers, that endeavor. So I think in that way, we're starting to think about those things that are not necessarily an ego legacy, but they're a community legacy that we can leave behind in a way. So yeah, the music is there, but I think the music could be seen as being selfish, more so than, say, an endeavor like winemaking.
Selfish. We can explore that word because it usually has a negative connotation, but it doesn't have to, right?
It doesn't have to. But when it comes to, like now, like me talking here, it's about what I have to say, and it's about me and blah, blah, blah. We're talking about my life story. Mm-hmm. It's very self-indulgent, and it's very, it's very rooted in ego. But, as an elder, as a person who's journeyed, I've seen a few things, and I feel like some of these things are worth sharing, and some of these moments are worth looking at in terms of the biography, just mm-hmm. to help, if nothing else, a frame of reference. But I would suggest that, if you're going to read this one, definitely read another dozen of other people's decisions, and make your own decision. That's what it really comes down to, is like what I mentioned earlier. When you're in that moment and you've got to make that decision for yourself, no one is there for you. Mm-hmm. And you can't let anybody be there for you. I guess that's the point. You have to make your own decision. And when you make the wrong decision, you have to be able to live with that mistake, because you either win or you learn. If you lose, that's on you. Mm-hmm.
And it should be on you at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. Don't be a loser. learn from your mistakes, and then you didn't lose, and then you didn't make the wrong decision. You just made a decision that went in a way you didn't expect it, and it caused you extra work.
Now, if we dive deeper, it's into that idea. It's even the concept of making a mistake that is so. It's been put into us from when we were young. This idea of don't make a mistake, get it right. When at the end of the day, where does that even come from? Why does that even matter? And at the end of the day, if you're expected to hit at 100%, you're fucking missing the point anyway, aren't you?
Yeah, you're not going to really learn anything by hitting 100%. You have to make mistakes in perspective. Of course, learning from other people's experiences is important as long as you don't completely worship or follow that person's decisions and choices, mistakes or otherwise, because then you're just kind of living in their shadow. You're back to the life of Brian, chasing him around with a sandal. That doesn't make any sense.
He did have a good impersonation of God, though. That was in Life of Brian. That was still pretty good. Would you characterize yourself as a confident person?
No.
Were you ever?
Maybe for a minute, when you're drunk in a party. But no, not really. I'm always questioning, what could I have done better? What could I have done right? Did I do it wrong? How could I improve?
Does that prevent you from enjoying the things you've made?
Oh, no. I definitely take the time to enjoy those things. But it does take a conscious effort to enjoy them rather than just seeing them for all the things I would have changed in them. I think Matt is the same way. Billy's the same way. The guys in TooL are the same way. Karina's the same way. We have a hard time looking, listening back and just enjoying the piece. When we're performing it, it's different because you're in the middle of correcting it, and you can just live in it and work with it.
What happens when the people that you work with don't, even though they may feel the same way, they don't feel it the same way you do, and the negotiation process to get it to a place where everybody can be their best?
That can be frustrating. It depends on who you're talking about, and in a restaurant setting or a winery setting or any business, band, otherwise restaurant, there's always that pyramid. There's going to be the owner or whoever cares about it the most. Yeah. There's always going to be that one person behind the owner that cares almost as much as the owner does. And then there's going to be the two people below them that one kind of cares and one doesn't at all. And then you can look at that math and it's across. You can expand that pyramid down to 50 dots.
But what about in a band where everybody is the owner and everybody feels like they have something to lose?
Then it's a mess. It's a train wreck. It's like herding cats. And there's just too many egos involved, and most artists in general, band or otherwise, painters, actors, well, not so much, some actors, I suppose, but there's a specific discipline that those artists focused on, and generally speaking, it ends up being kind of out of balance with the rest of disciplines in general. That's why I love in high school sports now in Michigan. There's an award for academics, so you actually have to be performing academically to be part of the sports teams. Right. There's a balance there. They don't just let you take off straight in one direction in terms of
just being good
of just athletics. They kind of force you to keep the other part up.
So when you look at the relationship you have with your audience and you meet people on the street, are you comfortable with it generally? Does it go the way you want it to?
I don't understand. No.
No to which part? You're not comfortable with it?
I don't. I'm busy trying to figure out all the voices in my head. So the idea of somebody coming, giving me extra props or acting weird over a person who's a mess, doesn't make any sense to me. And when people give their power away like that, I feel like I failed, because you have your own power. And to fawn over somebody who's as much of a mess as I am, or whoever, Joni Mitchell, or, Jimi Hendrix, or, anybody, Steve Carell, name a person who's working, and just trying to puzzle things out.
Maybe it's just a mutual admiration for the art you've created.
Yeah, but sometimes that's okay. That's, you can read that in general, but when it's the weird fawning, that is strange.
So what are people missing? I've heard this conversation because I've interviewed Robert Plant about it. I've seen the way people react to a band that people really want to keep doing stuff, and the question is generally, when you will you, won't you, can you? What I'm more interested in is what are people not getting about where you're at that makes questions about TooL or A Perfect Circle not the kinds of questions you want to deal with?
I have no idea. I think those, when's the fucking album? Those things there's so much a much larger symptom in our culture that goes way beyond that question and that specific band. Just the entitlement, and that you are owed something or due something. It's unfortunate that voice that social media has given people. They're so disconnected with the bigger pictures and the movements of things. We really need a meteor. We really do. We need something that's going to get people organized with each other.
Is the new president-elect, is that an intellectual meteor?
Oh, God. Beyond. That's terrifying. I don't know if I really want to go into that, but I mean, the bigotry and the racism and the negativity and just everything about it, that there's a war coming. There's a war coming, and it's not going to be pretty.
If you look at, it's the idea, politics aside from it, that it's what you said, it's the bigotry, it's the misogyny, it's now how do we do, what's our part in creating safe spaces? Because really this is what we've realized, is that marginalized voices, as much progress has happened, clearly not enough. Clearly regression is on the table for a lot of people, and not just in America, it happens all over the world, right? Mm-hmm. Women, if you're gay, bi, trans, lesbian, whatever your situation is, your reality is, the next bunch of years are very frightening.
Yeah, and it's funny because those very people in the States that would marginalize Muslims around the world and denounce them for their archaic views, they're demonstrating the same exact archaic views. Yeah. The fundamentalist, crazy, extreme, just Salem witch trial mentality that we thought we were beyond, and we haven't. I guess that's the message I've tried to explain to people in the past, is that we're not beyond that. We have the same people that did those awful things to each other. Mm-hmm. We're not beyond that. Our genetic makeup is no different than it was thousands of years ago. There's no difference. We're still monsters. The trick is to keep your monster in check. There's no way out.
So we need a meteor.
We need a meteor to just kind of, and that's just metaphorical, but yeah. I don't think it's the meteor of hate, because I think that is just going to end up making things pretty awful. What we need is something that's an outside meteor that brings people together, that they start realizing that they need to help each other, and they let go of some of that crap. I
was at the age when Reaganomics was popping, and the war on drugs and the Iran-Contra and all that, and then not that it was any trade-off, but I was just at that age where I thought, well, I get Fugazi out of it. So things started, right. Art started to become really, to me, art and politics have never been separated because of the Pistols and the Clash, and then ultimately Fugazi and Crass and bands like that, and the Slits. Do you think for you look to art in any way to take a big step forward now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm at that age where I can't see it. I can't see it yet. I know it's going to be in a form. I'm probably just not included in the solution. I think we're dancing around a little bit. One of the opening monologues for the Conditions of My Parole tour was about how, we had to use our creative juices. We had to be intelligent. We had to be resourceful in order to stay ahead of the things that were trying to eat us. We weren't faster. We weren't stronger. We had to be more clever. And that's why art is so drastically important. And throughout the ages, you've had crazy things happen. A meteor or a series of asteroids or whatever, or the blackening of the planet with volcanic activity, ice ages, all these things that kind of hit, tsunamis in areas and isolated areas of the world where groundwater is contaminated. All these things that get sewn into culture through a religious practice or just a ritual to help you survive in case that thing happens again. The argument people have made is, well, there's clothing, food, shelter everywhere you turn now, so why would we need to continue to develop that creative muscle? And the answer is because it's never going to come in the way that you thought it was going to come. It's not going to come for those areas that have, tundra is part of their religious or ritualistic practice to survive. Ice age, it won't be an ice age for them.
No.
It'll be another thing. It'll be something you had no idea was coming. A virus, an alien culture, some other thing. And that's how we as a creature have survived, is our creative, think outside the box processes. And I think that's gone. Just that basic puzzling. Social media is the biggest glaring sore in terms of that. You can put a post up that has all the information is in the photo and in the post, and somebody will ask you the question about, what? Didn't you just read what was right in front of you?
Yeah. Well, the answer is no. They didn't read it.
They didn't read it. They didn't look. They just want you to hand them the answer. And you are going to be food, sir. You are going to be food. For something, you are going to be food because you can't puzzle. You can't figure these things out that are right in front of you. And now I'm sounding like the old lion, the grandpa that's back when I was a kid. But I mean,
you had to read.
It really is true. You had, there's things there for you. And I know that there's a lot of people that get this, and I know there's a lot of people that are doing work and they're trying to remain present and conscious and breathing. But there's a hell of a lot more people that aren't, and all we can do is hope that somehow when the slate is wiped, that some of those people survive. So I would encourage you to breed and teach.
It's been a lot. Usually, we talk about cycles. It's been a lot longer than normal. But I remember in that first wave of, the early '90s, mid '90s, the big Lollapalooza acts, you guys in that famous second stage performance. But songs were on the radio, videos were being played, lyrics were being sung, and you never had to be embarrassed. So you were challenged by lyrics, but I didn't hear misogyny. I didn't hear homophobia. I didn't hear any racism. I didn't hear those things in songs that were number 1, number 10 on the charts. You guys were crushing live shows, and culturally, there wasn't room for it in that community. But it's clearly shifted, because the misogyny is right back and rampant in songs, homophobia for sure. As a guy who pays attention to culture, do you think something shifted?
I think it's a growing pain. I think maybe hopefully it's a last gasp, or it never went away, and we just had we had a little heyday for a minute, where it was coming and going. I would argue that we're moving into a more matriarchal society, and this is probably our last gasp, especially with Trump coming into play. That maybe that shift is happening of a more nurturing. Doesn't mean things are going to be all cozy and we're all going to be hugging. There's still going to be night and day, and there's still going to be things consuming each other to survive. That's just kind of the nature of our reality here, that even plants consume other plants and other things. So it's that's not going to go away. That struggle will remain, but I think there's so many things that there's got to be some kind of breaking point, and it could be, I don't know if we're overpopulated. I have no idea.
Parts of the world are.
Yeah. But as far as the world is concerned, if you could ask the world, is the Earth going to say, yes, there's too many of you, or is it going to say, no, I can completely sustain all these, you guys are tripping. just get along. If you can just get along, there's plenty of space.
Don't build pipelines and rivers, you need that.
Yeah, you kind of need those.
Are you listening to much music these days?
Yes and no.
Is it different than the way you used to listen to music?
No, when I'm listening to music, generally speaking, is in the cellar when I'm working, working on wine. So I'll have soundtracks, whatever. One particular day, we're bringing in fruit. I'll choose an album or an artist, and that'll be on repeat all day for that particular wine. And then when we go back to do the tasting notes 2 years later, we'll go back and look at the notes, and that'll actually be part of the tasting note of what was playing the day that fruit came in. And it could be anything: Ralph Stanley, Julian Welch, Joni Mitchell, Chemical Brothers, Otto Lux. Generally doesn't end up being anything aggressive.
Was there a particular wine that is connected to a particular band, and you're like, oh, that's way better than I thought it would be? That band is really giving it.
No, I don't think that there's so many outside influences, and there's so many a million variables that go into all those things. So I think it's just more for people when they're drinking it, they can see the note that was what was playing, and they can play it.
So if it's not aggressive music generally, do you listen to aggressive music in your own life?
Not really. Sometimes. But not really, especially because normally I'm doing something and I can't. Yeah. That noise doesn't help get anything done. It doesn't leave space for decisions.
Does it affect the kind of songwriting you participate in now?
It can, I suppose. Yeah. A lot of it comes down to just abilities, where you are.
Are you writing songs now?
Oh, always. That hasn't changed for 40 years. Yeah.
Where are they? Those songs? Are they in like different versions of them? Do you store them in some place?
In my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to get those on hard drive, man. You got to remember those songs.
Or not. Yeah. It doesn't. It just doesn't matter.
Do you have a desire to create music and present it to the public?
Yeah, I mean, as long as the thought is complete and it moves us in some way, absolutely. But it's just not. There's so many more important things.
Differently important things, I suppose.
Differently important things.
Do you compartmentalize when you write for your creative process? Do you write and say, this would be great with Billy, this would be for Perfect Soup, this would be great for TooL, this would be great for... No, I don't really
think like that. It just ends up, those conversations happen, and then we complete them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not really that way.
How's your voice?
Well, I've had a 103 fever for about 5 days straight. I just got over it a couple days ago. Wow. So my throat's jacked up. I've been coughing nonstop for a week, basically. So not great.
You look good, though. So your health is bouncing. We're going to play a request for the audience on this show. Some song, no genre, no era, no rules, just something you think would be great to share with the audience. Like a request.
Okay. Gillian Welch, Annabelle.
When do you think you'll be back on the road again, singing?
Well, I just got off the road singing. January, Australia.
Yeah. For the Pusfer record? Mm-hmm. For Money Shot? And do you have a plan for what comes next with any of the other bands?
Lots. Nice try, though.
Oh, no, I'm not afraid of asking you. Are you kidding? I want another TooL record. I want another Perfect Circle record. I'm not trying to get around it.
Yeah.
But I know how you answer those questions. But what I'm curious is there's so much mystery around it, which I'm fine with. I'm cool with the mythology. I'm cool with artists doing what they want. But in your head, do you see a plan?
For some things, yeah, I see a plan, and others I just see roadblocks.
Which one has the roadblocks?
And I can't say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why not? I'm not saying to say
Respect.
it. Yeah, okay. Because other people at play. That makes sense. What are you reading that's moving you?
I've been delving back into a little bit of Joseph Campbell recently. Paying a lot of... I try to filter out crap on Facebook so that I'm not inundated with... it's so unsubstantiated, everything is so all over the map, but there's always an interesting article about something, a breakthrough in some way. And generally speaking, when you see those kind of articles, I don't see the agenda right out the bat, so I can just enjoy that, and then maybe dig in a little deeper beyond that to see where that article leads me. Apparently, there's aliens on the moon. Okay, great. Completely unsubstantiated, and some half-baked nutcake making claims that there's a mining operation on the moon and the Chinese are going to expose it any minute. I think it's complete bullshit, and I think it's fantastic, and I'm going to keep repeating it just because I think it's a great story.
I want it to be true, man.
Yeah.
I want it to be true.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think that's one of the memes that are coming out now with Trump went in to meet Obama behind closed doors. When he came out, he was sweating. And everybody's going, must have told him about the aliens.
That's right. Careful what you ask for. You just might get it.
Yeah. And they don't like you.
No, they don't.
And they don't like you, and they're going to eat you.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
A pleasure.